Imagine you're charged with a serious crime. If you go to trial and lose, you're facing 20 years in prison. The prosecutor walks in and says, "Plead guilty today and I'll recommend 3 years. Refuse and I'm adding extra charges." You might be innocent. You might believe a jury would see the truth. But suddenly, this isn't about truth. It's about math, risk, and fear. This is the world of plea deals, where more than 90% of criminal cases in countries like the United States never reach a jury. Instead, they're negotiated in back rooms, in quick conversations, and in whispered hallway talks between lawyers. In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain and break down the numbers that quietly drive so many guilty pleas. We'll look at probabilities, sentencing ranges, and why the rational choice on paper can still feel deeply unfair in real life. To understand why plea deals dominate criminal justice, we need to slow down and ask, what decision is a defendant actually making? It's not simply guilty or not guilty. It's a calculation about risk. How likely am I to be convicted, and what happens if I am? In this video, we'll break that decision down step by step. We'll show how expected value, probability, and something called the trial penalty shape choices in ways that often surprise people. We'll explore how prosecutors use charges and sentencing ranges as bargaining chips, and how defense lawyers try to protect clients who are terrified of rolling the dice. If you're interested in law, true crime, or how systems really work behind the scenes, stay with me all the way to the end. And if you find this kind of deep dive helpful, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss future breakdowns. Let's start with the basic math idea at the heart of plea bargaining: expected value. In plain language, expected value is what you'd get on average if you could replay the same risky choice hundreds of times. Suppose the prosecutor offers 4 years in prison if you plead guilty now. If you go to trial, your lawyer says you have a 40% chance of being acquitted and walking free, and a 60% chance of being convicted and getting 10 years. Mathematically, the expected sentence of going to trial is 0.6 go at 10 years equals 6 years. Compare that to a guaranteed 4-year plea. On paper, the plea seems like the better deal. Of course, you don't live your life in averages, you live it once. But expected value gives us a starting point for understanding why even innocent people might seriously consider pleading guilty in the face of a much worse possible outcome at trial. Now, that simple equation hides a brutal reality called the trial penalty. This is the extra punishment a defendant risks receiving by exercising the constitutional right to a trial instead of taking a plea. In many systems, if you plead early, you might get 3 years. If you go to trial and lose, you could face 15 or 20. The difference isn't just about your actual conduct, it's leverage for negotiation. Prosecutors can stack charges, apply mandatory minimums, and threaten enhancements that drastically increase the maximum possible sentence. Defense lawyers know that judges often impose far harsher sentences after a trial conviction, partly because plea agreements bundle in leniency. So the defendant's decision isn't simply about guilt or innocence. It becomes, am I willing to risk an extra 10 or 15 years of my life to insist on a trial? That pressure, created by the trial penalty, is one of the strongest forces driving guilty pleas. Let's walk through a concrete example. You're charged with a drug offense. The base charge carries 5-10 years. But the prosecutor says if you don't plead, they'll add a distribution near a school enhancement and a conspiracy count, raising your exposure to 25 years. Your attorney estimates a 30% chance of acquittal, a 40% chance of a lesser conviction with about 8 years, and a 30% chance of the full 25 years. Mathematically, the expected sentence for going to trial looks like this: 0.3 x 0 years, plus 0.4 odds 8 years, plus 0.3 odds 25 years equals 0 plus 3.2 plus 7.5 equals 10.7 years. The plea offer, 6 years guaranteed. Purely by the numbers, taking 6 years is the rational choice. But here's the twist. You maintain you're innocent. You were just in the wrong car, wrong place, wrong time. On paper, the calculation screams, take the deal. Morally and emotionally, it feels like confessing to a lie. Expected value isn't the only factor. Humans are risk-averse, especially when the stakes are years of their lives. Two options with the same mathematical expected value can feel very different. Imagine, option A is a guaranteed 5-year plea. Option B is a 50% chance of acquittal and a 50% chance of 10 years if convicted. Mathematically, the expected sentence is 5 years either way. But psychologically, many people would scream, "I can't risk 10 years," and choose the certain 5. Others, especially if they insist on their innocence, might say, "I'd rather risk 10 years than guarantee any time at all." Risk tolerance depends on personality, prior experiences with the system, family responsibilities, and mental state after months in jail awaiting trial. The legal math might look neat on a whiteboard, but inside a holding cell, the fear of the worst-case outcome can completely dominate rational calculation. You might think the key number is the probability of conviction at trial, but how is that number actually estimated? Defense attorneys rarely say you have a 37% chance. Instead, they make educated guesses based on experience. They look at how strong is the physical evidence? Are there reliable witnesses? Is there video? What's the judge's track record on motions? How do local juries typically react to this type of case? Has the media covered it? Prosecutors run their own informal calculations. How many trials can our office realistically handle? How confident are we in this witness? What sentence will the judge likely impose if we win? They might offer a sweeter plea in a weaker case or a tougher one where they feel almost certain of conviction. So the math isn't a precise formula, it's a negotiation built on subjective probabilities, rough estimates that can easily be wrong in either direction. Sentencing guidelines and mandatory minimums are like the dials that set the stakes in this mathematical game. Legislatures pass laws saying, for example, if convicted of X with Y prior offenses, the judge must impose at least 10 years. Prosecutors then control which charges to file. By adding or dropping specific counts, they can move the minimum and maximum sentences up or down dramatically. Plea offers often involve dropping higher charges if the defendant accepts responsibility early. From a math perspective, this creates huge gaps between the plea offer and the worst-case trial outcome. That gap is what gives the prosecutor bargaining power. For someone facing a mandatory minimum of 15 years if they lose, even a 5-year plea looks relatively attractive. The guidelines don't just punish, they structure the entire negotiation, shaping the expected value of trial versus plea in ways most jurors and even many citizens never see. There's another layer to this math. Collateral consequences. Prison time is visible, but the hidden costs like losing your job, housing, immigration status, or custody of your children are often just as life-altering. A short plea might avoid certain immigration triggers, or keep an offense classified in a way that doesn't permanently block professional licenses. Conversely, a conviction at trial might carry the same prison term, but worse long-term labels like violent felony or aggravated offense. Defendants and lawyers sometimes weigh these downstream effects as if they were additional years of punishment. A 2-year plea with lifelong restrictions can feel, in practical terms, like more than 2 years. A slightly longer sentence with fewer collateral consequences might actually be preferable. From a decision theory perspective, the cost of each option isn't just years behind bars. It's a bundle of probabilities and life impacts, many of which are hard to quantify, but very real. So far, we've assumed your lawyer calmly explains all this math, but real life often looks very different, especially for poor defendants relying on overburdened public defenders. A public defender might have dozens of cases scheduled the same day. They may get only minutes with you in a crowded hallway. Explaining probabilities, sentencing ranges, and collateral consequences in detail can be nearly impossible. Meanwhile, prosecutors may say, "This offer expires today. If we pick a jury tomorrow, all bets are off." That time pressure turns a complex decision into a rushed, emotional leap. Many defendants have limited education, language barriers, or mental health issues that make it hard to fully grasp the stakes. The mathematical choice can feel like a blur of numbers and threats. So the theoretical model, rational actor weighing expected values, often collides with messy human realities. stress, confusion, distrust, and severe information gaps. Even when the math is clear, the ethics are not. Is a plea deal truly voluntary if the trial penalty is enormous? If an innocent person takes a plea to avoid a 30-year risk, are we comfortable calling that a choice? From the prosecutor's viewpoint, plea bargains can be efficient and merciful, reducing caseloads, sparing victims from testifying, and offering lighter sentences than statutes technically require. From the defense perspective, they are often a necessary shield against draconian laws, but they can also feel like coercion. The system effectively says, admit guilt or risk being crushed. Legal scholars debate whether the current structure respects the right to trial or quietly punishes people for invoking it. The numbers we've been discussing aren't just neutral calculations, they encode values about efficiency versus fairness, and about how much risk an individual should bear to exercise fundamental rights. Game theory helps explain the strategic dance between prosecutors and defense. Think of it as a negotiation where each side anticipates the other's moves. Prosecutors might start with a high sentence offer, expecting defense to push back. Defense might threaten to file motions or go to trial to signal that they won't accept a bad deal. Both sides are constantly updating their internal probabilities based on new evidence, witness cooperation, or rulings. In repeated interactions, like public defenders facing the same prosecutors daily, reputation matters. A lawyer known for always pleading early may get slightly better offers. One who frequently takes weak cases to trial might earn more respect or more hostility. The game has its own logic. Minimize risk, manage workloads, and avoid surprise losses. But at the center of this strategic back and forth is a single human being whose life is being traded, in effect, for certainty and efficiency. Let's quickly compare two hypothetical defendants to see how the same math plays out differently. Defendant A has strong family support, a stable job, no criminal record, and funds for a private attorney. Their lawyer can hire investigators, challenge evidence, and realistically take the case to trial. The prosecutor knows this and offers a modest plea, maybe only slightly lower than the expected trial outcome. Defendant B is poor, has prior convictions, and has been sitting in jail pre-trial because they can't afford bail. They're desperate to get home, even briefly. Their overworked public defender has limited time to prepare. The prosecutor, sensing leverage, offers a big discount, but only if they plead now. On paper, both are making choices. In practice, their bargaining positions are wildly different. The math of plea deals doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by money, race, history with the system, and unequal power. Let's recap the key ideas. Plea deals are driven by math, expected value, probabilities of conviction, sentencing ranges, and collateral consequences. The trial penalty makes the worst-case outcome at trial dramatically harsher than the plea, pushing even innocent people to consider admitting guilt. Risk aversion means many defendants will choose a certain but smaller sentence over a risky shot at acquittal, especially when they're scared, in jail pre-trial, or supporting families. Prosecutors use charging decisions and mandatory minimums as levers to widen the gap between plea and trial. But the math is rarely clean. Subjective guesses about evidence strength, overburdened defenders, time pressure, and unequal bargaining power all distort the ideal of rational choice. Ethically, this raises hard questions about how voluntary pleas really are, and whether efficiency has come at the cost of the right to trial. Understanding these numbers helps us see plea bargaining not as random but as a system with rules and trade-offs. If this breakdown changed how you think about guilty pleas, don't let it stop here. These decisions aren't just law school hypotheticals, they shape real lives every day. If you want to see more deep dives into how the justice system really works, the incentives, the math, the human stories behind headlines, take a moment to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That tells the algorithm this kind of content matters and helps it reach more people. In the comments, share your thoughts. Do you think plea deals are a necessary tool, or do the numbers make them unavoidably coercive? Have you or someone you know faced a decision like this? And if you found this helpful, consider sharing the video with a friend who loves legal analysis or true crime. The more people understand the math behind guilty pleas, the harder it is for injustice to hide behind paperwork and percentages.